Welcome to Brave Inflections. My name is Claudel Finnick, and today I have a very dear friend of mine, Lenore Kerrigan. She's with UiPath, and in recent conversation with her, I realized that she's sitting with a lot of wisdom that she can share with our viewers, and I wanted to bring her onto the platform and just have a chat with her. Lenore, thank you so much for spending some time with me on this video. UiPath, I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about what it is that your organization does, because I know when I'm out of my depth. And you guys are in the technology space. You're much better equipped to tell the viewers exactly what it is that you guys do.
Well, hi, Claudel. First of all, thank you so much for the opportunity, and hi to all of your viewers. So UiPath, first of all, just interestingly enough, stands for user interface path. So it's a path through the user interface. We are a technology company, global company, actually started out in Romania and now headquartered in New York. And last year was recognized as one of the fastest growing technology companies on the planet, and number 2 fastest growing just last week in the Americas. Why is that? So let me tell you a little bit about what the technology does. Our technology is fundamentally about automation, and it enables us to automate the mundane, repetitive, high volume, error-prone type of tasks that we do every day. And the technology is referred to as Robotic Process Automation. In short form, as we always do in the industry, we put 3 letters to everything. So we refer to RPA as Robotic Process Automation. But effectively what it means, it's about taking the robot out of us as humans and putting the human back into us so that we stop doing those mundane, repetitive tasks and we actually get technology to do it for us. So let me give you a very simple example. Something like accounts payable. How many creditors clerks sit in an organization with invoices coming in inboxes, and then you've got to rekey that information into some kind of ERP system like an SAP or an Oracle or a Microsoft Dynamics or something of that nature. And of course, what tends to happen is, as humans, we are not perfect, and we will typically transpose figures, make mistakes, miss something out, those kind of things. And then what happens is at month end, as humans, we land up working overtime because there's high volumes happening at the end of the month. And we're getting disgruntled employees who then make more mistakes because they're working overtime. And we actually have reached a tipping point where technology has put us in a situation now that we're working longer and harder hours because we just have so much information available to us. So we've come to a point that we're no longer being productive because of technology, which was the idea was to make us productive in the first place. So it's now about getting technology to do some of those mundane tasks. So you can now get software on your computer, which we call RPA, which enables the computer to do those repetitive tasks that you would ordinarily do on your keyboard. So going into that email, opening up the email folder, checking for incoming emails, opening up the attachment, reading the contents of that invoice, capturing that contents, opening up the ERP system, capturing the contents into the ERP system, and then filing that document away and sending out an email notifying the supplier that it's been processed, for example. That can all be done 100% by an automated process. The examples of what we can automate are absolutely endless in every area of every kind of business across the globe. And that's why you're seeing such massive growth and uptake in this space right now.
The leaders really should start to think about what are those things that we can automate and how we can start to use our people more effectively on the strategic issues. Very, very interesting. You have a lot of clients, and of course you guys are a big organization yourself as well. Lenore, your assessment of the state of readiness of organizations and leaders to deal with the current crisis that we're in it, and just for the make sure that everybody understand the context, because people may watch this video 5 years from now. So we're in the middle of the COVID-19 global pandemic, and South Africa in particular, one of those countries that are currently under lockdown. Your assessment, state of readiness of organizations and leaders to deal with the crisis?
So let me share with you what's very, very interesting is that there's two different environments. First of all, we can talk about how we're seeing this SME environment dealing with this. And then if we have a look at how corporate South Africa is dealing with this. And they are completely different from what we're seeing. So first of all, corporate South Africa is like deer in headlights. And the reason for that, and why I say that, is because they've been so well organized and so structured up until now around thinking about disaster recovery plans, and particularly in IT. And disaster recovery plans are about making sure that you've got some kind of disaster recovery data center in a different city or underground, away from an earthquake or a fire, or those kind of different kinds of acts of God. Never thought about this kind of act of God, where literally it's taking out your employees and they cannot work. And that was something that was never considered. And hence, many of and mostly I'd say the large part of organizations do not have a disaster recovery plan which covers for this kind of a disaster. So open up those manuals, realize they used to throw them away and say, how do you deal with this? Because first of all, the plans were about the executives would still be fully operational. They would just move to the different site along with their PA, along with their teams, and carry on business as usual from a different site. That's not taking place. So what you've got now is from your top executives through to your big teams of workers, from whether it's call centers to admin processing people to marketing agents to sales people. Everybody's now at home. Now, there's many things behind this. First of all, many of those people don't have access to technology. So organizations are scrambling to give them the technology and the access. Many people in the organization. Those who have, even at executive level, are struggling from a mindset and a cultural point of view on how to run a company like this, because they've never done that. For multinational organizations, it's a lot easier because that's pretty much order of the day. But looking at our large local corporates, this is a very real challenge, both mindset and culturally, and that's before we start having a look at technology. But business still needs to carry on. Now, we know that some businesses are definitely slowed down hugely because they, like manufacturing, rely on people to be in the factories. But when we have a look at other organizations, like you look at the retailers, the telcos, all the banking organizations, they still need to operate. But how do you operate with a dramatically reduced staff? And now, in fact, increased volumes. So that takes a mindset change. You're going to have to do it differently. We're going to have to run our businesses differently. And I think as much as this is a very negative situation to be in, we've been talking about changing the way we work for a long time now. We've been talking about remote working. We've been talking about greater collaboration. We've been talking about automation, but it's only been happening in very small pockets. The circumstances now is a massive catalyst for organizations to really make that shift in thinking and the way they do business, to do it differently, because they can.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you touched on the corporates, and you said you've got these two groupings, and there's the SMMEs. Are you thinking that the SMMEs are coping better than the corporates?
So what's interesting is, I think because your SMMEs have always had to try and keep their infrastructure as low as possible, they've been more abreast of using some of the technology tools, and they're able to adapt a whole lot quicker. I think it's all about adaptability.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's quite a generic statement, and I need to be very careful about that, because there are certain SMEs, like my husband's business is a manufacturing business. There's very little they can do. You can't put the machines online and carry on working. But I'm talking about SMEs that have the ability to continue their business by making the shift, have done so very, very quickly, and have looked at new models. So I have a look at some of our smaller partners, for example. They're being extremely creative in how they're reaching out to customers, how they're communicating with customers, and the kind of offers that they're putting on the table, because they're able to be a lot more agile. Your larger enterprises do not have the infrastructure, the culture, and because of quite tedious processes and structures, it's very difficult to make a quick shift.
Yeah. So if people need to think about how are we going to operate when we come out of this, your advice around how technology can help. What are the things that leaders should be thinking about from a technology perspective? Because some of it is a little too late now, right? So they need to start thinking about what are they going to do going forward.
Exactly. And I mean, we have got many organizations that are accelerating some thoughts and plans that they had previously. But I think, we have to be less reliant on putting the pressure on the human when the pressure is on. And what I mean by that, and we know that the kind of stresses in the work environment is huge. Because when there is a huge amount of workload, we just expect our people to work longer hours. And we've heard this concept, do more with less. Nobody's adding extra headcount, but we're all expecting higher revenue, less cost. It's just the way it is. Well, that in itself tells you something's got to break somewhere. You can't keep doing that and expecting it to continue. And that in itself is an immediate area to assess and say, okay, we should be automating our business. What are we actually making our people do that is not utilizing the creativity and the brain's trust of our employees, which are costly and important to our organization? I'll give you an example. We've got a customer which is in the supply chain environment, got a massive warehouse. And they actually implemented their automation process on their warehouse environment already a year ago. And that was because they have such high volumes in December, and they were just not coping. The trucks were literally parked down the road. Now, the lady who heads up the shipping department, she'd been working with the company for 30 years. And when they said they were bringing in automation, she was very concerned because she thought this was going to be the end of the job. Sadly, she felt that her value to the company was processing documents into a system. She'd lost complete touch with the fact that her real value was her 30 years of experience. And she wasn't getting time in the day to think about how they could do things better at better cost. She was just trying to get stuff done. And on average, a shipment was taking them between 3 to 4 hours to process a shipment. And now that they are automated, which includes integrating into the bank for picking up the latest foreign exchange rates, hooking into into SARS, which is to get the import permits, all that kind of thing. On average, they now process a shipment in 4 to 5 minutes.
Wow.
And 100% accuracy. And that's the important thing. The same lady now, she has now started a whole new revenue environment for this company in doing third-party warehousing, in utilizing their warehouse more effectively. So their revenue has grown, the cost has gone down, the accuracy has dramatically improved, employee experience has improved, and I can tell you something, so has customer experience, because those shipments are coming in on time, they can get out on time too. And this is a mind shift move, because unfortunately humans feel if we start automating something, you've got this concept of robotics, that there's this R2D2 thing that's going to come into my office and take over my job. Quite the contrary. It's about making us being creative, being human, and collaborating as we are supposed to be as humans. Right. So, I mean, we feel that our value is by hitting keyboards and just putting data into systems. In fact, we should be collaborating amongst each other as humans, doing ideation sessions, using our creativity around what are the new businesses of the future, and how can we drive up revenue and or overall increased revenue and new revenue ideas for the organizations we work for. There's just not enough of that happening.
And you gave us a really, really good example, and you talked about the warehouse. So when organizations embrace technology, and especially when it's very new and it requires, as you mentioned earlier on, a mind shift and the way we think about things. And so things can, they essentially, it puts the organization at an inflection point. Things can either go fantastic or horribly wrong. So from your clients, those who have gotten it right, what would you say were the success factors that help them to implement the technology successfully?
Definitely the first thing is mindset. And that mindset comes from the most senior layer of an organization, where we have literally at CEO level driving automation through the organization is where we find the biggest success. And you need to be able to take the people along that route. And it's like any industrial revolution. We talk about the 4R. There was huge concerns in the earlier revolutions when the car was invented that jobs would be lost. People never at that stage ever imagined someone like Lewis Hamilton earning millions by racing the darn things. Yeah. And that's exactly what automation is going to be doing going forward. It's going to fundamentally change the way we do things, create a whole lot of new jobs and new ways of creating business going forward. So it does take strong leadership, like it does in most shifts, sort of mindset shift changes, particularly in the corporates. Leadership to drive that, your HR environment to expose employees across an organization of the opportunity. And we talk about automation in two ways. There's your top-down approach and your bottom-up approach. And the most successful is the organizations that most organizations start top-down, but very quickly switch to bottom-up as well. And what I mean by that is you identify a couple of key areas in an organization from an executive level that's going to make a fundamental difference. And this is from top down, and you automate those processes and you celebrate those successes. And that can be done very quickly. What happens in that situation is you get a couple of people in the department that is impacted by that success that say, you're not going to believe what's happened in my environment. We're now processing these things in 4 minutes. I've got no errors, no issues. It's just going so well. They become what we call your coffee area or water cooler evangelists. And they really understand the value of this, and they start bringing the rest of the people along. The next thing is now to expose your entire organization to automation and allow organization to start putting forward their own ideas. Because let's be frank, every single one of us in our daily jobs have things that we do that we could think, if I didn't have to do this, it would be wonderful. I got an example yesterday, a customer where they do the credit card reconciliation. And it apparently takes the person 10 hours every month to do the credit card reconciliation. I mean, how laborious is that? And our partner put an automated process in place, and it now takes 8 minutes.
Yeah.
take something like that, and you can't tell me that the person that's doing that is not working long and hard hours. So you start putting that kind of power into the hands of the people in the organization, where they can now start putting forward their own ideas for automation. And the next step is really what we call having a citizen developer, where each person is able to develop their own automated processes on their own laptops for their own specific tasks. And now you start getting a groundswell of automation. And it's very much like, I go back and tell people, do you remember when spreadsheets first came out? Well, I do. I'm sure many of your viewers don't, but I remember really well. In my auditing days, we used to use analysis paper, and it was a nightmare until I discovered a spreadsheet. Let me tell you, you take the spreadsheet application of anybody's laptop today, you're going to have a crisis on your hands, because it makes life easier. And this is not hugely different to that. Exactly the same thing. It's about now another tool that enables us to do a whole range of tasks in a very fast, automated way, and take that drudgery away, so we can do more with less.
So really, it is about how you think about things. It is, as you said earlier on, it's a mind shift change that needs to, a mind shift that needs to take place. Lenore, your organization has you've worked on a number of initiatives to assist organizations right now in the middle of this crisis that you've made available for free. Can you talk about those initiatives and how organizations can access what you have made available?
Absolutely. So, I think if we have a look at the current situation that particularly the healthcare industry and governments across the globe find themselves in, is exactly what I was describing earlier, where now there are amazing volumes, literally overnight, that were never anticipated, that now need to be managed. Take a very simple example, like the lab testing of all the tests coming through. We know that countries are struggling with the volume of tests. One thing is getting the test kits out there, which is the physical side, but the other side of it is being able to turn around those test results very, very quickly and accurately and get them back to the right people. So one example is we have worked on a lab testing solution which uses an automation process, which literally enables you to automate the process of the test results. So once the test actually gets back to a laboratory type of environment, the results, the process is fully automated. And this is based on a number of rules. And what it does is it will then take the results, automatically sort through those results, and then identify, for example, if somebody is negative, well, you want to get that information back to the person as soon as possible. And you really don't want to have a nurse or a doctor involved in that. That automatically can send some kind of notification. In this particular case, in the UK, they're sending out an SMS notification to the person. Here's your reference number, your test result is negative, and end of story. Whereas on the other hand, if it's a positive situation, what happens then is that the results get sent through to an available professional consultant who's able to pick it up in their queue. And what it does is it immediately populates the World Health Organization form that is required for notification. There's a standard format. It prepares that form, provides that form to the health worker and the details, and then also automatically schedules the time for a call with the individual. You can just imagine the amount of time that's taken out of that process by having something like that done. So I believe in this one particular case in the UK, it was taking around about 36 hours from the time of the test, physical test result, to the time it went out to the individual. They've now got it down to 12 hours. And I think that alone, speaks for itself. Some of the other areas is we've got a solution for test scheduling. and that's literally to be able to handle the volume of appointments and work lists for staff, and check-in and discharge together with daily reports, that kind of thing. We've also heard across the globe that there is massive recruitment taking place on potentially health workers who are retired or in other sectors that are volunteering to come forward. How do you recruit these people when, you know, there is nobody available to do the interviews? So being able to do the screening and the background checks and that kind of thing. It reads the application, validates credentials, selects and allocates, and then prioritizes the applications for somebody to then go through as such, instead of wading through all these applications. And there, in that case, the volume recruitment, they've taken from 5 days to recruit, from a recruitment application to an interview, down to 4 hours. So that's another good example. And then another one I can share with you is, for example, unemployment benefits. That we know in South Africa, I think, is going to be a huge challenge, because the volume coming through are unprecedented volumes that we've never seen before. We just don't have the systems to be able to handle those. So you want to be able to handle volumes in a fast and accurate way. And there is a fair amount of rule-based checks that one is able to do with that, and to be able to prioritize and process those. So that's another example of something we're doing. And then something possibly a little bit more generic that's quite meaningful. And this is actually built off an automatic process that we use in our own organization. We have our Vibe robot. And what that is we have literally a weekly survey that goes out to employees to check how employees are feeling. That robot has now been, that whole process has been changed now to make available for any organization to be able to ask questions around the wellness and the general feeling of the employees. So you've got let's say you're a hospital chain and you've got all these employees out there. You have no idea how they're feeling, how they're dealing with the situation, their health situation. You can literally send out a survey via WhatsApp on, I don't know, a weekly basis, even a daily basis, to get the input from the employees. It will then correlate all of this data and provide the information back to an HR environment and show the trends on how the trends are moving. And if there are any particular or perturbing metrics that come through, those can be handled specifically. So that's another really great example. And I mean, that process is freely available on our open marketplace, which is like an app store, if you will. And it runs on our technology. Now, obviously, our technology is technology that needs to be licensed, but at the moment, our CEO is offering free attended robots, which is, in other words, a robot that you can run on your own laptop for any COVID-19 specific use case. And it's available until the 30th of September for anyone to use freely. So that's just some examples, and we just want to help out wherever we can across the globe.
So let me just make sure that I understand, Lenore. The one that really caught my attention was how organizations can keep in touch with their employees and have a sense of how they're feeling and how they're coping with this whole situation, the crisis that we're finding ourselves in. Because I think a lot of organizations are forgetting the empathy side of things, right? So how do you make sure that by the time people come back to work, that people come back with the morale still at a high level? You don't want people with a low morale coming back and having to rebuild from scratch again. So are you saying that any organization who wants to use that during this period, specifically to keep tabs on their staff in terms of where they're at in relation to the pandemic, that they would be able to use that for free?
Correct. So they would make an application through to us. So we'll qualify that it is COVID-19 related. And it's a fairly simple process where we would agree to that use case, also agree to the time period, and then we would make the license available. And then the customer themselves can decide whether they want to use their own skills in-house to be able to get that up and running. But where I'm also very heartened is I've reached out to a number of our local partners who do the implementation of our technology. And many of our partners have offered where they've got people, working from home on the bench, technical people that are prepared to pitch in and help get the systems up and running, because it needs to be obviously implemented on somebody's system. You need to bring the process in, set it up for their specific requirements. In that case, they would probably have, different questions, run it at different periods, that kind of thing. Help get it set up and running. So we have a number of local partners who are willing to help out as well, also on a basis of offering this as a social responsibility.
Wow. Now that is really, really, really helpful. What advice would you have for leaders who are now in panic mode?
So, everything in life is about priority. My advice is to try and step away from the situation if one possibly can, and try to think a little bit out the box. And the problem is we're so busy running around in square circles. It's with volumes that we cannot deal with. It's not going to help. So it requires literally stepping away from the way we understand things operated in the past, identify where are the biggest issues and what are the issues and how can they potentially be addressed differently. And, to me, the biggest issues are quite often around how do you reach people, how do you deal with the volumes, and how do you deal with processing volumes where you don't have the people themselves in the office. Those are quite often the things. And all three of those are areas that can be very well addressed with RPA, or robotic process automation. And what I've also, and we've spoken to a number of our partners, maybe you can't address the entire end-to-end process, but if there's one piece of the process that's relatively straightforward and rules-based, but high volume and just time-consuming, if you can take that piece out of the process and automate that piece so that your people can do the rest, you can probably get through this with the volumes that you're going to have to deal with and the circumstances that we're also dealing with.
And some people are going to come back to work with a mountain waiting for them. So just one last question from you, Lenore, from a more personal perspective. You have been fortunate in that you've been working from home for a significant amount of time already. So this is like your normal life. So there are a lot of people out there who now suddenly find themselves working from home, and it may be a prolonged period of time because we have no idea whether A, the lockdown is going to be extended, and B, if it is extended, for how long. What advice do you have for people who work from home and this is just a new reality for them?
So I think there's two sides to that. Maybe on a personal lighter side, yes, I am used to working from home and I'm used to having all the technology at my fingertips to be able to do that. But I'm also used to having a support infrastructure around me that I'm able to work extremely long hours in that way. I don't have that support infrastructure. So I actually take my hats off to all of the people out there that run homes and are able to look after children and cook and clean and wash, because I've never done any of that. So to take the technology out from home, that's my challenge that I'm dealing with. So hats off to you all out there. I really, at this stage, appreciate what people go through. But what I am fortunate about as I can operate business. For me, it's business as usual from a technology perspective. And the first thing is to use technologies that are freely available out there. The first thing is you and I having this interview on Zoom. There are many platforms. In fact, in one particular day, I had so many conference calls, I landed up using 5 different technologies in one day. I used Zoom, I used Slack, I used WebEx, I used Microsoft Teams and Google Meet, all in one day. And that for me is not unusual, that you become completely used to dealing with those technologies. And it's amazing what you can achieve on those technologies. So, you know, that's the first thing. Secondly, I spoke to an executive recently who said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm supposed to do somebody's performance review and I can't go and meet with them. I said, well, do it on Zoom. I can't do that. You can. And she did eventually do it on Zoom. And I said, how'd it go? She said, it went very well. And that's that mindset thing. You know, we kind of need to ask ourselves, just because we've always done it in a certain way in the past, does that necessarily mean it can't be done in another way? And in 90% of cases, we probably can do it in another way. And it's again about just taking that frame of reference and shifting your frame of reference a little bit and thinking about it differently. I believe after this, we're going to be having more and more conversations taking place on video conference than we've ever seen before. At a personal level, I'm seeing now people FaceTiming and WhatsApp videoing that never ever did that before. I never spoke to my elderly father on WhatsApp video before because he just couldn't manage it. But he's managing it just fine now, quite frankly, because he needs to see me and speak to me. So there is a lot that can be done. We need to, again, it's that mind shift we need to shift. The other thing, working from home when you're not used to it, you are working. And what I mean by that is if you were going to work and you were getting to work and starting your desk at 8:30 in the morning and you were leaving at 5 in the afternoon, well, that's how it needs to be. Guess what? The good news is you don't have to sit in the traffic. So you've got that extra time, it was your traffic time or whatever it was, where you are with the family and to do the additional things that you weren't able to do before. But make sure you have your working hours, that you do what you did before. And find, if you're not able to do certain things, like my performance appraisal example, ask yourself, why am I not able to do it? Is there another way that I can do it? Make sure your diary is scheduled for a week in advance, that you are busy, that you are productive, that you are doing things. Don't allow yourself to go into, oh, this is hard and I'm not seeing people and I'm miserable and I need people. Well, change your frame of reference, get on a video call, have the conversation with the person. And, you know, I think what we've also been doing as an organization globally, and this has been a hang of a lot of fun, and I think local organizations haven't got their head around it, but we have throughout the EMEA region, we have meditation, Pilates, and yoga sessions. So on a Tuesday, I do Pilates, and on a Thursday, I do yoga, and that's our time. And all of the people in our region are invited. And guess what? Because my husband's at home, he joins me as well. I wasn't able to do that in the working environment, and it's a lot of fun. We are having, for example, drinks meetings. So our Middle East Africa region on yesterday afternoon, we all bought a drink and we got on a video call and we discussed the business and what drinks we're drinking. And it was fantastic because I don't normally get to see those people anyway. So find ways to do the things we were doing before in a different way. And in fact, you can find they can even be more pleasurable than they were before. And I think we'll continue to do that going forward. For example, the online yoga and Pilates, I think those businesses in that space that have moved into online, their businesses are only going to blossom and continue to grow after this because people have realized the value of that.
Because now once they expose, they get used to it and then it becomes the new normal.
Exactly. I mean, I used to travel extensively and always said, well, I can't do Pilates because I can't, have fixed times and that sort of thing. Well, I could be on the other side of the globe and I can continue to do my Pilates session. So, that's an example of how things are going to shift. We're going to be able to see that we can do things differently in a more pleasurable way and be more effective.
Lenore, thank you so much for your time. Before I let you go, can you just give us your website address?
Yes, it's very, very simple. It's www.uipath.com. That's UiPath.com.
Great. Thank you very much. And I do hope that each one of you watching this video have at least gotten one little bit of a nugget out of it, and hopefully lots of valuable lessons that you've learned in the process. And we all need to go through a mindset shift and think about things very, very differently. I do encourage you to go and have a look at what UiPath is offering, especially now during the lockdown. As Lenore has said earlier on, there are a number of free initiatives that they've made available, the initiatives that they've made available for free during this period. Go and have a look and see whether your organization can make use of that and benefit in the process. Don't forget this very important thing. You have people that you've got to lead. And so think about your people and make sure that you check up on them on a regular basis. Thank you very much for watching Brave Inflexions. Please go to the website. There are lots more on there. That's www.braveinflexions.com. Thank you.